All right, everyone, get ready for this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into large reasoning models.
LRMs.
LRMs, exactly. You know, these AI systems that are already like shaking things up.
Yeah.
But imagine if you could have one that could handle problems where there's no clear answer. You know,
Like in real life.
like the things WE struggle with. That's what's so cool about this research paper
Yeah.
you sent over on a brand new model called Marco-o1. It comes from Alibaba's Marco-Polo team.
Oh.
And they're really pushing the boundaries here. I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, this is a really good one. What always gets me is how most AI that we see is like,
Super smart.
super smart, but like in a really specific way. Like a chess grandmaster.
Oh.
Brilliant when it comes to those rules, right?
Right.
But real world problems, I mean,
They're messy.
they're messy. It's not always clear what the right move is. Think of like navigating a city.
Yeah.
It's unpredictable. You have to constantly make these nuanced decisions in the moment.
Exactly.
That's where Marco-o1 comes in.
So it's AI that can handle like the gray areas.
Yes,
The stuff that's not just black or white, right or wrong. That's a huge shift.
it is.
Even the title of the paper is hinting at it. Marco-o1. Towards open reasoning models for open-ended solutions.
Love that title.
What's so important about those two phrases, open reasoning and open-ended solutions?
Those are really at the core of what makes this different. Open reasoning means the model, it's not just following a set of instructions. It's adapting its thinking, getting creative. Yeah, thinking outside the box. And then open-ended solutions, that implies you could have multiple valid answers.
Right.
And that's more like real life. Real world problems are rarely black and white.
Yeah, it's like instead of AI giving us the answer, it's giving us
Options,
possibilities,
Yeah.
ones that we might not have even thought of. Okay, but there's this question in the paper
Yeah.
that seems so basic. How many R's are in strawberry?
Right.
Why include something so simple?
I mean, because
We all learned that in grade school.
Exactly. But even that simple question requires you to kind of break down the word, recognize the letter R, and then count. That's the whole point of what they call chain of thought reasoning, or COT.
Oh, okay.
It's essentially the model thinking out loud, step by step, to figure out the solution.
It's not just knowing the answer. It's
Exactly.
knowing how to get there.
Exactly. And understanding the process.
So COT is kind of like getting a glimpse inside
Right.
of how the AI is thinking and breaking things down. But they mention other techniques too, like COT fine-tuning, Monte Carlo Tree Search,
Yes. MCTI.
reflection mechanisms, and even some really innovative reasoning strategies.
Lots of tools in the toolbox.
Could you unpack some of those a little bit for us?
Sure. So code tone tuning, that's all about training the model using data that's like more human-like.
Okay.
So it's almost like showing the model how we solve problems step by step.
So it can learn from us.
Exactly. Learn from the best.
And what about MCTS?
Oh, that's a fascinating one. So imagine the model is trying to figure out a problem.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying one thing, it actually explores multiple options at every step,
Oh, wow.
like mapping out all the different possibilities.
So it's not just picking the first solution it finds.
No. It's thinking ahead, a bit like strategic planning in chess.
Okay, so it's about finding the best solution.
Yeah, the most strategic, the most promising one. Exactly.
A solution.
Yeah.
And then there's reflection mechanisms. That sounds almost human.
Right.
Like the model is pausing for a second
Taking a breath.
and like reflecting on its own thinking.
Right. It's really remarkable. It's as if we're prompting the model to say, hold on a second, did I miss something? Maybe I should rethink this whole thing. And the researchers actually added this in so that the model could like catch any errors.
Oh, interesting.
And actually refine its approach. It's adding a layer of self-awareness, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's like a built-in check and balance system
Yeah.
for its own thought process.
Oh, like,
But all of this isn't just theoretical, right?
no.
The paper actually mentions some really impressive improvements in accuracy, especially with something called the MGSM dataset.
Right.
They saw increases of plus 6.17% for English and plus 5.60% for Chinese.
That's huge.
What does that actually mean for those of us who aren't data scientists?
Those numbers tell us that Marco-o1 is delivering real results. The MGSM dataset that's specifically designed to test reasoning in like complex scenarios.
Oh, okay.
So those improvements, they show this isn't just a cool idea, it's actually working.
So it's proving itself
It's proving itself.
in like a controlled setting.
Right.
But how would this actually play out in the real world? Like what kinds of problems could it actually solve?
Think about situations where there isn't one right answer, but rather a lot of potential solutions, each with their own pros and cons. Take, for example, designing a travel itinerary.
Okay.
You've got your budget, how much time you have, what you're interested in seeing, and all of these things influence each other, and there's no single best solution for everyone.
Right.
That's where a model like this could really shine,
Yeah.
exploring all those possibilities and then giving you the best options based on what you need.
So it's not about the AI making the decision for you.
Right.
It's about
helping you make a better decision.
giving you the information
Exactly.
to make the best choice for you.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. And it really shows how AI is changing. It's not about giving us the answer anymore.
Right.
It's about helping us make the best decision.
Right.
I'm also really curious about this part where they talk about Marco-o1 being able to translate slang,
Oh, yeah.
which is super hard for AI to do
It is?
because it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
They have this example where it translates a Chinese slang phrase, which literally means this shoe offers a stepping on poop sensation.
Oh, what?
It translates that into this shoe has a comfortable sole.
Oh, wow.
How is it capturing these subtle cultural meanings?
Traditional tools, they really struggle with slang because they often translate word for word,
Right.
and they miss the cultural context. But Marco-o1, with its open reasoning and its focus on understanding the why behind language,
Yeah.
it's able to get the intent and then translate that accurately.
So it's not just translating the words.
The local.
It's translating the feeling,
The experience.
which is
Yeah.
a perfect segue to figure 2 in the paper,
Okay.
which gives us like a visual overview of how this all works. It highlights 2 key sections: solution space expansion via MCTS and reasoning action strategy. Can you walk us through those, especially in the context of this slang translation example?
So imagine you're trying to translate that slang phrase. MCTS allows Marco-o1 to play around with different interpretations.
Yeah.
So the literal meaning, the cultural context, what emotion it's trying to convey,
Right.
and then it can settle on the most accurate translation.
So it's almost like brainstorming.
Yeah,
Different ways to say the same thing, considering all those little nuances before making a choice.
exactly. It's considering all the options.
So it's not just about finding the right words.
Right.
It's about understanding what you're actually trying to express, the feeling behind it.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And what about reasoning action strategy?
So this refers to how Marco-o1 takes that complex task of translating and breaks it down into smaller, more manageable steps. So instead of trying to translate the whole phrase at once,
Right.
it might focus on individual words or phrases first, analyze them, and then put it all back together in a way that captures the essence of what's being said.
So it's kind of like solving a puzzle,
It is.
carefully piecing together all these different elements
Yeah.
to make sure you get the whole picture.
Exactly. Like a mosaic.
Okay, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
But the paper also talks about some limitations and things they want to work on in the future.
Uh-huh.
The conclusions and future work section specifically talks about refining the reward signal for MCTS
Yes.
and exploring these reinforcement learning techniques.
Right.
Can you tell us why those are so important?
So right now, MCTS uses something called a confidence score to evaluate different paths.
Okay.
It's like a way for the model to kind of guess how good its reasoning is at each step.
Like it's intuition.
Yeah, it's gut feeling.
Oh, okay.
But this score is based on probabilities and stats, and that might not always capture the full complexity of human reasoning.
It needs to be refined
Needs to be refined, yeah.
to make even better decisions.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what about those reinforcement learning techniques?
So reinforcement learning, that's all about teaching AI through trial and error.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine giving the model feedback on its translations, like rewarding it when it's right and guiding it when it makes a mistake.
Okay.
That allows the model to continuously learn and get better.
It's like having a personal tutor
It is.
for language.
That can help it understand those nuances.
Exactly. The complexities of slang and culture.
But this whole area of evaluating models and open-ended problems, it feels tricky.
It is.
How do you measure success?
When there isn't one right answer.
That's the big question.
That's what I keep coming back to.
It's a challenge that researchers are really working on, and it's something that we'll be digging into much deeper in part 2 of our Marco-o1 deep dive.
Okay, cool.
We'll explore those challenges of evaluation and talk about why it's so important for the future of AI.
Can't wait for that. But for now,
Yeah.
we'll take a quick break and be back soon with more insights on Marco-o1 and how it's going to change how we solve problems.
Sounds good.
So last time we were really getting into this amazing new LRM, Marco-o1, and how it can tackle these like really complex problems.
These open-ended ones?
Right, the ones where there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
And one thing that really stuck with me was that phrase, solution space expansion via MCTS.
Uh-huh.
It sounds so cool, but I'm still not quite sure how Marco-o1 actually does that. Like, how does it actually expand the solution space?
Okay, so think about it like planning a road trip, a big one across the country.
Okay. Yep.
You've got where you're starting and where you want to end up, but there are like a million ways to get there.
Right, so many different routes.
Exactly. Do you want to get there fast? Do you want to see the sights along the way? Do you want to save money? MCTS lets Marco-o1 map out all those different possibilities.
So it's not just finding a way to get there.
No.
It's finding, like...
the best way.
The best way, yeah.
Based on what you want.
Okay, so it's like having a super smart GPS.
Yeah.
That knows every single back road and detour.
Every possible route.
But then how does it decide which of those paths are worth exploring? You mentioned something about a confidence score before.
Right. So as Marco-o1 is checking out each of those routes, it gives it a score based on how likely it thinks that path will lead to a good outcome.
So it's kind of like the model's own rating system?
Yeah, like it's saying, okay, I'm pretty sure this way is good, but this other way, I'm not so sure.
So it's constantly checking how confident it is.
Exactly, at each step.
But how does it actually figure out that confidence score?
It looks at all the information it has at each step.
Yeah.
And makes a judgment call.
So like if we go back to that road trip analogy.
Yes.
At each intersection.
Uh-huh.
It's considering all the different turns it could make.
And it's saying, okay, based on what I know so far, how sure am I that this turn will get me closer to my destination?
And the more info it gets,
the better its score.
The more accurate it becomes.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense. But with all those potential paths branching out, how does it choose which one to actually follow? Does it just always go with the highest score?
That's where the reasoning action strategy comes in.
Yeah, right. We talked about that.
Yeah. Remember how Marco-o1 breaks down problems into steps?
Mm-hmm.
The reasoning action strategy is basically like the rules for how it decides what to do at each step.
So that's like a set of guidelines.
Exactly.
To make sure it doesn't get lost.
Right, because it's a huge space to explore.
That's really important when you're dealing with something this complex.
Absolutely. In the paper, they actually tested out a few different strategies.
Oh, interesting.
One was to, treat each step as a single action.
Okay.
But they also tried breaking those steps down even further.
Into smaller steps.
Yeah, they call them mini steps.
Mini steps.
And each one of those was made up of, 32 or 64 tokens.
Right, tokens. Can we talk about those again?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Tokens are basically the building blocks of language.
Okay.
They can be a word or punctuation or even just part of a word.
Okay, so they're like the little pieces.
Yeah, and by breaking down each step into these smaller bits,
yeah.
Marco-o1 can really fine-tune its thinking.
So it's like having an even more detailed map.
Exactly.
So you can navigate all those little twists and turns of language.
Precisely.
That's so cool. So how did those different reasoning action strategies actually work? Was one better than the other?
Well, it kind of depended. For some tasks, using single actions was good enough. But for the really tough ones, those mini steps actually made a big difference.
Interesting. So it's like you wouldn't use the same map for a walk in the park as you would for, an expedition through the jungle.
Exactly. You need the right level of detail.
But even with all these strategies in place, I'm still a little bit unclear on how Marco-o1 actually makes that decision.
Okay.
How does it choose which path to take, whether it's a step or a mini step?
It's all about balancing exploration with exploitation.
Exploration and exploitation.
Yeah. So at the beginning, it might try out a bunch of different things, just to see what's out there.
Okay, so it's exploring the possibility.
Exactly. But then as it learns more, it starts to focus on the paths that have worked well in the past.
So it's exploiting the knowledge it's gained.
Exactly. It's like, okay, I've been down this road before and it led to a good outcome, so I'm going to try that again.
So it's almost like the model is developing its own intuition.
Right. It's learning to trust its own judgment.
But even with all that careful planning, what happens if Marco-o1 realizes it's made a wrong turn? Is there a way for it to, course correct?
That's where the reflect then mechanism comes in.
Okay, we talked about that, yeah.
And it's honestly one of the coolest things about this whole system.
Yeah.
So basically, they added this prompt at the end of each thought process.
Okay.
That tells the model, hold on a second, maybe I made some mistakes here. I need to rethink this whole thing from the very beginning.
It's like it's taking a step back.
Yeah, taking a breath.
And reevaluating.
Exactly. Questioning its own assumptions.
That's amazing. It's like a built-in self-doubt mechanism.
Right. Something we could all use sometimes.
Seriously. But how much does that actually help?
It makes a huge difference, especially with these open-ended problems.
Oh, really?
Where the first solution might not be the best one.
So by giving it a chance to, like, second guess itself,
Yeah.
it can actually come up with better answers.
Much more reliable and robust, yeah.
That's so cool. It's like we're not just teaching AI to follow instructions anymore.
Right.
We're teaching it to actually think for itself.
To think critically, independently.
And to learn from its mistakes.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm still working on.
Me too.
But it's amazing to see how far this technology has come.
It is.
And this shift in focus is like essential for the future of AI.
Absolutely.
As models like Marco-o1 keep evolving, being able to adapt to new situations and even question themselves.
Yeah.
That's going to be so valuable.
It is.
But with all this talk about open-ended problem solving and AI's growing abilities, it's hard not to wonder about like the implications.
Yeah.
How do we even measure success when there isn't one right answer?
Right.
How do we evaluate these models when the goalposts are constantly moving?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's exactly what we're going to be tackling in the final part of our Marco-o1 deep dive.
Okay, awesome.
We're going to explore all the challenges of evaluating these open-ended systems and talk about what it means for the future of problem solving.
Can't wait.
It's going to be good.
We're back for the final part of our Marco-o1 deep dive. And wow, my head is spinning.
Lots to unpack.
We've seen how this model can tackle these complex, open-ended problems, but how do you actually measure success when there isn't just one right answer? It's the question that I keep coming back to.
It really is a challenge for like traditional AI evaluation.
Yeah.
Those classic metrics like accuracy.
Yeah.
They work great when you have a clear target.
Right.
But in this world of open-ended problems, it's not so simple.
Because if you ask 10 people to plan that cross-country road trip we talked about, you'll probably get 10 different itineraries.
Absolutely, each with its own logic.
Right, so how do we move past those like rigid metrics and actually assess how good these different solutions are?
It requires a real shift in thinking, almost like a philosophical shift.
Oh, interesting.
We have to move away from simply asking, did the model get the right answer?
Yeah.
And instead ask, did it come up with solutions that are, thoughtful, creative, relevant to the problem?
So it's less about hitting a bullseye.
Right.
And more about exploring a whole range of possibilities.
Exactly. Opening up new avenues that we might not have even considered.
Like we're judging the AI's creativity.
Exactly. Its ability to think outside the box.
And that's where human judgment becomes so important, right?
Absolutely. We need people who are experts in whatever field we're talking about to actually evaluate these solutions.
It's like we need art critics for AI.
I like that.
To appreciate the nuances and the originality.
And to tell us if it's actually any good.
But even with experts weighing in, won't there always be some subjectivity?
Of course. I mean, subjectivity is part of any creative process, whether it's human or artificial. But that doesn't mean we can't aim for a more objective and rigorous evaluation system. By having clear criteria, bringing in different perspectives, and encouraging open discussion among experts. We can start to build a more reliable way to assess how much progress we're making in this new era of AI.
This whole conversation about evaluation, it really highlights how the relationship between humans and AI is changing, don't you think?
It is.
It's not about machines taking over.
Yeah.
It's about them working with us.
Partners in problem solving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Models like Marco-o1, they can be amazing tools for, brainstorming, challenging assumptions,
pushing the boundaries,
and helping us see things in new ways.
It's like having this tireless research assistant that can explore every single angle.
So we can focus on the big picture.
Exactly.
That collaboration, that's what really excites me. Imagine scientists using this to generate new hypotheses.
Yeah.
Architects exploring unconventional designs.
Or writers creating stories with all these unexpected twists.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
But with all this talk about AI's expanding role, it's hard not to think about the downsides too.
Yeah.
Are we heading towards a future where machines are making all the decisions?
It's a valid concern, and it's why responsible AI development is so crucial. As these systems get more sophisticated, we have to prioritize transparency, accountability, and making sure humans are still in control.
Still at the helm.
The goal should never be to replace human judgment.
Right.
It should be to make it better,
To enhance it.
to use AI as a tool for progress.
That's a good reminder that we're still in the driver's seat.
We are.
We decide how these technologies are developed and used.
Yeah.
And what kind of future we build with them.
That's a great point to end on. This deep dive into Marco-o1 has been incredible.
Yeah, it really has.
And it's clear that we're just scratching the surface
Yeah.
of what's possible with open-ended AI.
I can't wait to see what comes next.
It's an exciting journey.
Huge thanks to you for guiding us through this fascinating world.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
Keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you next time as we continue to explore the amazing world of AI.